In this video, we're going to quickly review some concepts that will be on your midterm exam. Let's start with the principle of osmosis. Remember that in osmosis, water moves from high concentration, a hypotonic solution is high in water concentration, to low water concentration, in other words, hypertonic. So if we were to take a bag filled with water and a little bit of starch, and if this bag simulated a cell, we could put it in different solutions and different things would happen. For example, putting this bag in solution 1 causes the mass of the bag to increase by 22%. That happened because water entered the bag. Now, since water entered the bag, we could infer that the solution it was placed in is hypotonic, having more water, whereas the solution inside the bag was hypertonic, having less water, and so water moved in by osmosis to balance things out. Now, in this second solution, there is 0% change in mass. Overall, the same amount of water is moving in and out. Because of that, we can infer that the bag is isotonic to the solution. They're equal concentrations, so there's no overall movement of water. Finally, in solution 3, we might observe that the bag loses 16% of its mass. Its mass decreases because water is leaving the bag by osmosis. It's leaving the bag by osmosis because the bag itself is hypotonic and the solution is very concentrated with starch, for example, and hypertonic. And so water leaves the bag by osmosis. We could also represent this experiment graphically. Let's imagine that we took potatoes and put them in different solutions of sucrose. Now, sucrose is a bigger molecule and not likely to move, but water can move in and out of the potato. So if we look at this graph, there's 3 trends. Right here, the potato is increasing in mass, anywhere from just a little percentage up to 30%. The reason that's happening is that the potato was placed in a hypotonic solution. So water entered the potato to make it bigger. Here we see the opposite. Here the potato is decreasing mass. It's losing mass because water is leaving because it's been placed in a hypertonic solution. But then there's one more interesting trend. Right here, we see that there is 0% change in mass. That happened because the potato and the sucrose solution were isotonic, so there was no overall movement of water. So we could also infer from that information that the solution, when it's 0.3 molar, causes no change in mass, and thus the potato is also about 0.3 molar. Now, this happens in a real cell across the cell membrane, so let's review some parts of the membrane. Right here, we've got proteins, and they might have various functions such as transport for large and charged molecules. Here we've got our phospholipid bilayer. There's the hydrophilic phosphates, and there's the hydrophobic fatty acid tails. Because of that, only small and uncharged things can go through the phospholipid bilayer. So oxygen and carbon dioxide could go through the bilayer, but bigger or charged things could not. Now, let's take a look at one more interesting thing. Here we can see a protein with some carbohydrates attached to it. This is known as a glycoprotein, and it's used for identification. Here is something similar, again, carbohydrates attached to the phospholipid. This is known as a glycolipid, and it's also used for identification. So this is kind of like the cell's driver license. It tells other cells what kind of cell it is. Now let's review some human body systems. Let's start with the nervous system. One component of the nervous system is the brain. One part of the brain is the cerebrum. That's for reasoning and thinking. Another part of the brain is the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus does a variety of things, one of which is regulate the pituitary gland. Here's the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is in charge of other endocrine glands, such as the testes or the ovaries or the adrenal glands or the pancreas. And then here we've got a very important structure called the medulla. The medulla, if you remember, is responsible for regulating breathing and heart rate. It's got sensors to detect carbon dioxide concentrations in the blood. Now, the main cell that makes up the brain and other parts of the nervous system is the neuron. And it consists of specialized features like an axon or dendrites or the cell body. And the neuron might communicate with an effector cell, such as this set of muscle cells, in order to make you respond. Bone cells are linked to the nervous and muscular system. This is what a group of bone cells might look like. They also connect to the immune system because this is where B cells and T cells are made. The endocrine system is made up of a bunch of different glands. Remember that to be a gland, you have to secrete a hormone. So here we've got the adrenal glands that secrete adrenaline for fight or flight. Here's the pancreas, which secretes insulin and glucagon to regulate blood sugar. And then here we've got the gonads, the ovaries and testes, and those control your secondary sex characteristics and the onset of puberty. Here we've got alveoli. These are found in the lungs, in the respiratory system, and they're responsible for gas exchange. Oxygen moves into the capillaries and carbon dioxide moves. Oxygen will move from the capillaries into the alveoli, and carbon dioxide will do the reverse. These finger-like structures are found in your small intestine, in your digestive system, and this is where nutrients are absorbed into capillaries so that then blood can take the nutrients to your cells. This tubular structure is found in your kidney. This is the nephron. You've got 1 million of these in your kidney, and they are filtering the blood to make urine. Next, we've got the immune system. In this case, here's our pathogen, the bad guy. The pathogen has little molecules called antigens to help identify it. Those antigens will be bound by antibodies, and the antibodies are produced by special white blood cells called B cells. Moving back to the urinary system, remember that one way to diagnose health is to do a urinalysis. If there's sugar in your urine, we can find out by using a test strip, and it might be indicative of diabetes. If there's protein in the urine, we can diagnose it with Burette solution, and that might be indicative of nephritis. And then finally, if the urine is dark, just by observing the color of the urine, that might be a sign of dehydration. One quick review for evolution, reading phylogenetic trees. Remember with phylogenetic trees that the timeline is often absent, but you have to infer that this is present day and this is long, long ago. Also remember that the more closely related species have the most recent common ancestor. So for example, crocodiles are actually more closely related to ostriches than they are to lizards, because crocodiles have a common ancestor here, which is more recent than their ancestor here with lizards. Similarly, amphibians are more closely related to lungfish. That's a typo. Amphibians are more closely related to mammals than they are to lungfish, because amphibians share a common ancestor with mammals here, whereas their common ancestor with lungfish is here. So amphibians would be more closely related to mammals. All right, now those are just a few of the topics that might be on your midterm. So as you study tonight and potentially tomorrow, remember to review videos, your online study guide. You've got test wizard questions, both polls and exit slips. You've got your notes and flashcards. If you haven't been making them, well, now's a good time to start. And then, of course, your free responses do a great job of summing up key information. Good luck and study hard.